All right, everyone. Welcome to the X No Contact podcast. My name is John. I also go by Dad. I'm on the Discord. I'm the moderator on the subreddit. I'm the owner of the Telegram and the website xnocontact.com. This episode, we're going to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to have Dylan introduce himself and our guest Yasmine introduce herself. And I'll have her run through her story for about 5-10 minutes. That way we all have the opportunity to sort of tell each other our thoughts. And cool. So let's start. Dylan, let's start with you.
Yeah, so getting used to the whole podcast thing, since this is the second time around for me doing it. Obviously, my name's Dylan, aka Uncle Soap on the Discord. You might see me shit posting and memes. You might see me spitting hot fire in support. Now you know what I sound like.
Perfect.
So,
Yasmine here. I live in London and 28 years old, just working here. And I joined the Telegram X No Contact group roughly about maybe 3 months ago or so. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So do you want to start and just give us like a quick summary of what you said to us?
Sure. So I was with my ex for 3 years, and last year after August everything went a bit south, and he just become very cold and distant, and just decided not to communicate with me on any level. So there was just me trying my best to communicate with him. It came to a point where, although we worked 15 minutes away from each other, we would only see each other like once a week, and that was like 2.5 hours. That was for drinks or something, and I realized that my ex was just becoming more friendly with me than a person that I was in a relationship with. So the normal things that you would do in a relationship were just non-existent anymore, and I just realized at that point that my gut feeling was telling me that there was someone else. And when I confronted him, he kind of lashed out and used work against me, because that was one of his strongest things that he would use against me. And it came to a point where every time I tried to express my feelings, I would get shut down. And it came to a point where I would apologize for sharing my feelings. And there was something quite personal that happened to me on the last week of being in a relationship with him, that he just wasn't there for me. And when I just looked into his eyes, he was gone. Like it wasn't the same person. And he crossed a massive boundary to me when I realized that he went out with someone that I was suspicious of, that he constantly denied. And then the next day I decided to just end the relationship myself, even though I didn't want to. I had to, for my dignity's sake. That's about it. Yeah. But it was quite heartbreaking for me.
It's a little hard to hear. I don't know if you're on your cellular data or not, but I could hear it, but it's a little bit hard. But just to summarize what you said, basically, like, you were dating this guy and he started getting pretty distant, and he started to just like not make time for you, and you were trying to communicate. He just was not communicating with you, and you kept trying and you kept trying and he kept pushing and he kept pushing, and eventually you found out he was with this girl who you kind of had a feeling he would be, and he crossed a boundary there, and so you just had enough. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, like one of his excuses would be work. So he started working at the weekends, and then one time when I asked if we can talk or watch a movie or something one Saturday, he said, no, I think I'm gonna go out for drinks with my colleagues. And this girl is still one of his colleagues. And then that was a massive boundary. Like that was big 100%. Cross for me, because
of course
I shared, how I was uncomfortable with this closeness, and then the fact that I had gut feeling as well. Even though I confronted him about it, didn't want it to eat my head or anything. So he crossed a massive line. So, and then I just decided to cut it off, because I realized I was being treated like a doormat more than a partner.
Your audio sounds amazing now, by the way. Dylan,
I just put my headphones on.
Yeah, it's perfect. Dylan, you said that you had a similar experience.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. Me reading your your summarization of how it happened and how it went down. I was actually seeing a gal early January, late December, and it wasn't like a serious commitment, but at the same time, things were definitely heading there, but we were non-exclusive, as the young kids say these days. Anyway, basically, to summarize it up without stealing the spotlight, kind of the same thing happened. She ended up seeing somebody else. I had made it pretty clear to set a boundary down, saying, hey, like, I'm kind of the person who is the relationship type, and I would really appreciate if we saw each other exclusively. Now, however, you're more than free to see whomever you like. Just give me a heads up, and we can go back to platonic things. Fair boundary, I would imagine, at least to most, but maybe not. Anyways, I noticed the signs of her talking to another person, so this is kind of where I'm getting at. And it's funny because it kind of plays into that same sense of dishonesty. It's not necessarily the part about them seeing another person, but it's kind of them hiding the fact that they are. So when you mentioned in your story, like how they're busy all the time, same thing happened with mine. Delayed response times. Somehow they're doing major work at wee hours in the morning.
Yeah, sometimes somehow they're like a celebrity now with like no time.
Right?
Exactly.
It's like as if they rule in the world. I'm like, where did this
They have
come
like
from? You're not saving the world.
Yeah, they have like 20 employees somehow. Like, yeah.
Yep. And it's crazy because just kind of things seem to pile up, and it's really subtle, and you kind of have this gut feeling like, there's no way they're doing this. Like, they would just tell me. But the gut feeling does tell you at the end of the day whether it's happening or not.
Absolutely.
I think that, Yasmine, that you communicated like beautifully throughout the whole thing. You were open and honest the entire time. And you mentioned there was a time when you went on a date with him, or not a date, you met up with him. And you were like, what do you want? Like, tell me what you want. Like, you were trying to get him to communicate with you. And he was very hesitant, very hesitant. I'm sure that's extremely frustrating to deal with. But then all of a sudden he just said, I want it, and he kissed you. And he tried to shut you up with a kiss.
Yeah, absolutely. That was just I knew it though at that point. As soon as the kissing was done, I was like, so are you gonna answer my question? Like, are
Yeah.
you going to answer properly? And
Yeah.
he just started to shake his head, and I was just like, oh, okay. Like, he's deep down, I knew he was gone. He checked out from that relationship, but there was just this something inside me that was still fighting for it. Then I realized the relationship was becoming very one-sided in the end. But yeah, so that was absolutely just a manipulator, really, trying to shut you up with some physicality, basically, and yeah, trying to play
Dylan, have
with
you
your
noticed?
emotions and feelings.
Yeah, 100%. And being like not honest with like, because it's like, why are you kissing me? Like, can you tell me why? Like, can you tell me anything?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny too. Going to the point, I had a brain fart because Gmail is completely down, and it was trying to like gather points from the story. But the unsureness is also something I noticed because it kind of happened like we were kind of on the rocks between my thing, and they were unsure, which is kind of like, okay, that's kind of where the other person comes in because now they're conflicted. They don't know if they want to be with their original partner or if they want to go to the other side of the fence per se.
That's not right though. That's just basically using two people at the same time. Just let me test the waters and then see whichever one actually plays in my favor. And then
Well, it's
Really.
once the
not
other
fair at
one
all.
it's not at all. And the other
No.
person does, you do get that gut feeling. You just know it. There's
It's
just
even
something that
worse
isn't
too.
right.
It's worse too because like not only did he not give you a fair explanation, but he also fooled you and like kept you on the line the entire time. Like, for example, you also said that he was asking for your GPS location.
Oh
Meanwhile,
God, yeah.
Yeah.
this guy's
There's
asking for
this
your GPS. Meanwhile, he's not even making time to see you. It's so ass backwards.
guys, honestly, this was like I don't know if I was naive or was just basically my ex at the beginning. He still is an insecure person, and only an insecure person would like to track down their partner's whereabouts. So I was in Brussels, and he would always constantly ask for my location whenever I was out with a couple of friends. You know, I thought, oh my God, like I don't want to make him feel insecure. So let me be, you know, let me reassure him. So I would send my location. I would tell him who I'm going with, where I'm going with, what time I'll be coming back home, etc. But I never asked the same from him ever.
No. See, the way I see that also is it comes off as major projection.
Absolutely.
When people are being dishonest or they're seeing, multiple people, that's kind of a thing that they do because they fear of that happening to them. They may or may not be doing that already. So how that kind of portrays, they want to ask your location because they're paranoid because they're doing the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when he was using work and friend, like you also said that he was using work and he was using like hanging out with his colleagues as an excuse to not hang out with you. And it's
Work
weird
was
to,
such, yeah, sorry, carry
yeah,
on.
no, it's okay. It's weird to me because he was using work and friends as like a shield. He was very defensive, and I'm wondering, like, why so defensive? Like, if you're just be honest, and it's weird that he would use that as a shield. I don't know. It just came interesting
Because
to me.
that's just purely because he's a coward. And
Yeah.
also the fact that he was using work is because he knows that nothing can be said against work. He works in
Right.
corporate. I work in corporate too, so I know how the hours work.
Mhm.
Obviously, I guess his job is more demanding, but that doesn't give you the right to use that against me. And I had to, be vocal about this constantly and say to him that this isn't about your work. It's nothing to do. It's about you and me and the relationship. But he was just very emotionally immature to understand that not being able to communicate is a problem, but using work for him, it was just sufficient enough, to brush it
Mhm.
off.
Oh,
It
he
was just,
communicates, but just not like respectfully.
No.
yeah, true. No, he actions never matched, sorry, words never matched actions, for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
For
Yes.
sure.
I'd say, yeah, like just the almost like avoidant tendencies, like, oh, it's work or it's this, but they never want to give you the right answer. They don't want to just get
Do you know
straight
what?
to the point.
Do you know
Too
what? They
afraid.
want to play this victim complex thing that they have. They prefer to be the victim
Oh,
Mm.
yes.
rather than the villain. Basically, I'm
Yeah,
the
like, you
villain
made
in
me
in
do
his
this.
story. Yeah, I'm the villain in his story.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
How
and he
dare you
is the
want to hang out
victim
with
in
me?
his story. Absolutely. So it was very planned. I know how his mind works, and he planned this very well. Um,
Uh,
so yeah, he's he drove me to that point of breaking up with him because that's what he wanted me to do
yep.
anyways.
Oh
So
yeah.
then, honestly, within 10 minutes, he called up his parents and friends. They all blocked me from all social media.
Oh,
I couldn't. I was begging 2 minutes for
yeah.
this guy to communicate with me on the phone. There was a time where I was begging for him to call me,
Yep.
and within 10 minutes, he told all of his families. They blocked, deleted me, and I was like, "Wow, this is very, very well planned. Like I could
Hmm.
be the biggest victim ever." And
Yeah.
they'll never know my story. They'll never know my part, but that's
No.
okay. That's okay.
I do have a question. And like, I'm not. I think it's an important question. Um, like, he kept giving you the cold shoulder, and you try to communicate with him, and this happened a lot, right?
Like yeah, it happened a
Like,
lot
over
in
time.
October,
Yeah.
especially just October, that last month.
So do you think that maybe that your mistake was that you let him do that?
My mistake was to keep pushing for an answer when I should have just trusted his actions. Like
Yeah.
he is actually talking through his actions, but I was so eager to get those words out of his mouth, as in, no, I love you, I want to be in a relationship with you, blah, blah, blah. That's me being very at the low of my emotional state. Like I was so sad that I was willing to do anything for this relationship at that point.
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
working for it.
No, go on. What were you saying?
No, it's like building a house and then that person just decides to leave and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
great, let me keep up working on this house. It doesn't, it just all crumbles down because you
Right.
need that person as well in there. It just didn't work. And it was very exhausting. Like there was a time in the last week I would just cry myself to sleep. because I was so afraid of speaking to him at this point, because I was just like, oh, it's bad as it is, but if I speak to him, it's going to get worse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
My
that's
question,
emotional abuse, but yeah.
yeah, 100%. My question, do you think that part of you felt like you didn't want it to be true? And so what you did was you started allowing him to get away with things you normally wouldn't, because any of that shitty behavior that he does to you would be better than seeing him cheat.
Absolutely, because these kind of people, they, how can I, yeah, like, yeah, you're right, because I was holding on to this hope where he's going to prove me wrong. He's going to
Mhm.
prove my gut feeling wrong. He's going to prove what I'm thinking wrong. I just want him to prove me wrong. That's all I was after. And the more I didn't get that, the more I decided to give to him. So I was more like loving. I become quite needy and clingy, I would say,
Mhm.
which is not me at all, at all. And yeah, you realize that this person is actually taking a piece of you every time you're having a breakdown. Every time they're taking a piece of you, they're building themselves up. So
Oh, 100%.
I'm stroking his ego as I'm actually, treated like, crap, basically.
No, but you're right. You're 100%. And Dylan, I want to hear your opinion on this too in just a second. But I want to make this point that it's kind of like a slot machine if you think about it. Like when the other person starts to pull away, the stakes get higher and higher. You pull the lever, and each time you start losing more and more money until eventually you say F it, and you start making bigger, more desperate bets in
Yep.
order to gain back all of your losses until
Absolutely.
eventually your worst fear comes true. And then not only is the game over, but now the game is over and you're broke and left with nothing. So I guess my advice for people listening who are going through something similar is stop playing the game before you're emotionally broke. Like stop pulling the lever.
Mhm.
Walk away from the machine with the money that you still have left. It's corny, but you want your partner to be a never-ending ATM rather than a slot machine, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
But Dylan, did you have an opinion on any relevant experience with that?
Yeah, I do. Kind of like hearing you say it in the way you did. It kind of sounds like you were looking for like verbal confirmation, almost in a sense, to see where you were at, but you weren't getting that. But you kind of knew more or less where things were going.
Yes. I was looking for that. You're right, that verbal validation that the relationship is okay. It's because I wasn't getting anything. I wasn't,
Mhm.
honestly, nothing. Like, I wasn't getting any communication from him, no indication whatsoever. But then when I would see him, he would act so normal as well, which is causes a lot more confusion. So, like, when you become cold in your text and your calls, but in person you're acting as if like you're normal, it doesn't make sense. And that's why you're seeking for more answers. And that's when you're actually pushing that person away more and more. So honestly, if you have a gut feeling, go with that, because 100% that is true. That is 100% the truth. I strongly believe in that.
Yeah, where there's
Absolutely.
smoke, there's fire.
Yep. If it sounds like a duck, it looks like a duck, and it swims like a duck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can waste a lot of time and you can cause yourself a lot of pain by just denying it. And I think a lot of it has to do with fear. I think Yasmin, that fear had a lot to do with it. I think that, and I'm just guessing here, tell me if I'm wrong, but the idea of him cheating on you, I think, was kind of looming over your head for months or maybe even more than that. And that was your biggest fear, and you did everything you could to avoid it. And you tried your best to just keep him, not keep him doing anything, but just tried your best to communicate and keep things going smoothly. But at the end of the day, it takes two to tango, like you can only give in 50%. He has to give in the other 50%. And no matter what you do, you can't control your fate. You can't control what's going to happen. And it's awful and it sucks. But do you think that you were afraid? A big thing was that it was fear that was running your desperation.
Of course, like, the fear of betrayal is one of the biggest fears. For me anyways, I can't accept it at all. But the problem is that, yeah, I had that fear, but whenever I communicated with him, or whenever we sat down and spoke for like a couple of hours, I always asked him, look, if you're interested in someone, you need to let me go. Like, I don't want to be cheated on when I'm in a relationship. Okay, if you do not want to be involved in a relationship, if you do not have any feelings for me, I need to be let go. And you need to do that because you don't have any feelings for me anymore. I still do, and I want the relationship to work. But if you don't reciprocate, that means we need to end it. And he just would not give me anything. So I gave him many, many opportunities. Even though I had
Too
that
many.
fear, I gave him many opportunities to go, basically. I actually, I asked him to go. I told him to go, but he just refused. I don't know why. I really don't know why. I'll never understand. But he refused, and that broke me even more because, well, yeah, eventually I realized that I was being emotionally cheated on.
Yeah,
Then
I
I
think
know
we know
of,
why. I think
yeah.
Dylan knows why. He mentioned something called monkey branching. And Dylan, can you explain that?
Yeah, so basically, with monkey branching, obviously they're involved with you. They may or may not be involved with another person. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, but it's something that is across their mind. This is where, when I was speaking earlier about the people being unsure part, that kind of has a part to play into it, because now that another person's entered the fray, well, all of a sudden their feelings are confused, and rightfully so. It's not like it might not be intentional, it might be, who knows, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like, now you're stuck between two people, so things start going real sideways real quick when that happens.
Well, also with monkey branching, they don't let go of the other branch until they have a grip on the other branch. So he won't start pulling away from you until he's got a fair grip on the other. So that's kind of, I think, why he was like, oh no, like everything's fine, even though it wasn't, which pisses me off when people do that. But
oh yeah,
but he was waiting until he knew that he had a good grip on the other person before he was gonna just completely let you go, which is exactly what, like, going on a jungle gym is.
God, that's so disturbing, isn't it? When you think
It's
about
awful.
it, that's actually, you're just playing with someone, their emotional, their emotion, their
Well, he's
mentality,
just using
basically.
you for
Yeah,
himself.
yeah, absolutely. I did feel like used as well, honestly.
oh yeah.
I
I
felt
mean,
like a
yeah.
punching bag, if that makes sense. So, like, I was just used for everything, for emotional abuse, everything psychologically as well. It's shocking, but yeah.
So where are you now, and currently where are you now? Like, how are you doing?
I'm doing much better. I started going to therapy as soon as my relationship ended, and I realized that I need to work on myself because I gave so much of myself to someone that I need to gain that back.
What about like the last thing that happened between you two? I think you mentioned that he has a girlfriend now, and he was like still asking you to get your stuff and
Oh
talk.
God. Okay, so this is a funny thing because I went no contact. Sorry, wait, let me explain. I broke up with him over the phone within 8 minutes. I didn't give him any opportunity to say anything back to me because he lost that opportunity anyways. And so I went immediately no contact. I didn't even know about this no contact thing at the time, but I just knew that I had to cut communications with him. And 7 days later, I texted him saying, I'm clearing my stuff and I have a couple of your things here. Do you want them back? And he came back with maybe after lockdown. In my head, I'm like, no, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to wait around for another month or two. So I said, no, like, you can come and collect it in a couple of days. If not, whatever. And I just threw it away. And
Perfect.
yeah,
Good for you.
clothes don't mean shit, okay? It just doesn't mean anything. I don't care. Anyways,
If it's like Gucci or something, you could send it to me.
no, he was cheap, guys. Sorry.
Okay. Finance guy.
Really cheap.
Okay.
Yeah, finance guy and cheap, right?
Wow.
Oh God, don't even get me there. Anyways, yeah, like after 3 months, towards the end of January, he calls me on a Sunday around 7:30 out of blue. I freeze. And I'm like, wow, I was doing so well. Like I was
Yeah.
fine. Because at that point I had a lot of work to do. So I was just doing my work. And I picked up and I said, hello. And yeah, he just started talking. And some of the things he dropped, he would be like, just want to check how you are and just want to let you know that I still have your heels. I still have a couple of your stuff here. Do you want them back? I said, no, I told you over the phone when I broke up, I do not want anything. And he also said to me that, what else did he say? Gosh,
But he wants to talk with you.
Yep.
yeah. So he said after like 10 minutes of a conversation, he said, well, what have you been up to and stuff? I said, nothing, like it doesn't concern you.
Mm.
And he just said, well, what do you think if we just meet up for a coffee and just talk over stuff? And I said, what is there that needs to be said that you can't say over the phone to me? And he was like, well, just out of respect. So he uses that word. He uses that word because respect means a lot to me. I've always emphasized on that in my relationship. And me being naive, I guess, I reluctantly agreed. I said, okay, I'm not free this weekend, but next weekend, Saturday. And came Saturday, no location, no time, nothing, ghosted me completely. And within 3 days afterwards, texting me and saying, oh, I'm sorry, I had a couple of work to do. He didn't have work to do. I know
He didn't have respect
was.
either, like he said.
Nope.
I know where he was. He doesn't know, but I know that at that point he was already seeing this girl because he moved on within 3 weeks after the breakup, and he was just flaunting everything on social media. And he texts me saying, "Oh, like maybe 2 weeks later, if we can meet up, maybe 2 weeks later." I said, "No." I said, "If you have anything to say, you can say me now. If not, the least you can do is leave me alone." And I didn't hear anything back from him then. And then recently, about like maybe 2 weeks ago, coming up to 3 weeks, he went public with this girl that he obviously cheated on me with on social media. And I received a text within 24 hours saying, "Oh, I just want to check one last time if you want to meet up and hand over your stuff out of respect." My
My
blood just
God.
boiled.
Yikes.
Yeah, so I realized that it wasn't about my stuff.
No.
It's not
No.
about me. It's nothing to do with me
No.
at all.
It
Remember-
never is.
No.
No. Especially with him, because remember when you said that when you did meet up with him, he only talked about himself for like 3 hours?
That was the last ever conversation I
Yeah.
had with him in my relationship on a Friday night for 2.5 hours. We
That's
went out for
depressing.
drinks, and all he did
Yeah.
it was like a mini test from him. Sorry,
Yeah.
mini test from me. I was like, I'm gonna test him. I'm gonna see if he's actually into this. And I started just asking questions to him about himself, but he never returned them. So yeah.
Yeah.
No. This time is no different either, because I mean, he texted you again, like, "Oh, like last chance, like you want to meet up." This is
What
going to be
an
the same thing.
Yeah.
Not only does he want to get his own closure for himself, but most importantly, and I think this is the most important point I can emphasize, he wants to relieve his own guilt. That's why he wants to meet up with you.
Absolutely.
It's
He knows that
exactly.
he's guilty as hell. Like he knows it.
Out of
And he
respect, I want
knows
to
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
take this off my shoulders onto you out of respect.
Do you know what? On that first phone call in January, he would constantly apologize. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And I realized I never acknowledged it, of course. I never acknowledged it or anything like that.
And that's what he wants. He wants you to acknowledge it, and he wants you to say that it's okay. That's what he wants.
Exactly. And he also said, "I don't regret anything." I was like, "No, I don't regret anything I said either."
Perfect.
Yeah.
And but
What an
yeah,
asshole.
absolutely right. So yeah, absolutely. But you guys are spot on. Definitely, it's not about me. It's about him trying to shift his guilt and move on with his life because deep down he knows what he's done wrong is wrong, basically.
I have to say too that, like I said, like praising you on getting rid of his stuff. Great job, because at the end of the day, like being in the X No Contact Discord for however long I've been in there seems like a dinosaur's age at this point. But I noticed that a lot of dumpers and dumpees keep their ex's stuff, and they're like, "Oh well, like I'll give it back to them at a later date." And I'm like,
God, no.
"Why don't you just give it back now?" Because what that is doing is that you're not it's not finalizing anything. It's keeping that door open, and it's
Yeah.
just giving them or you an excuse to have to contact them again. So
Yep.
right there and then, like, it's either you or the dumper who's interfering with your healing process. So, and that's how I see it with him, is that, again, John gave a better explanation of monkey branching than I did, but he still, even with this new gal, he still wasn't able to move on, and that's why he kept your stuff. And he's like, "Oh, do you want your stuff back? But we got to meet in person to talk." And it's like, there you go.
It's just
That happens a
clothes,
lot.
Oh
honestly. Just
yes.
throw it away. It has no
Yeah.
significance. Yeah, absolutely. It's just, what is it called? Leverage, to
Yep.
get to
Yep.
you, basically. And it's to have some kind of power over you as well. So my advice would be to anyone, if you have your ex's stuff, give them a time frame to collect it as soon as possible within the first couple of days. Even if you're
Yes.
heartbroken, get it
Mhm.
over, done with it, to give it to them. If they don't collect it, or just throw it away, just throw it away.
Yep.
Anything that's is, it's not worth it. Honestly, it's not worth
Nope.
the trauma at all.
Yeah.
Even-
'Cause that's on them.
Even if you have a third party that'll help you and do it for you, any kind of possessions or business that you have with them, finalize it as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted to make another point, just for people listening. I think that actually, Dylan, can you just wrap up like how you're doing with your situation that you just mentioned? Just kind of conclude that.
Like personally, I'm doing pretty good for the most part. Like, it wasn't like it was a committed relationship or anything.
Yeah.
The big part for me, and the reason why I relate to this very much, is because like it's on that same level of dishonesty. Now, obviously, when you're in a committed relationship for like many years, it's a lot different. It's a very bigger degree than for my situation. But more or less in the concept of that, like I said, it's that dishonesty is probably one of the most soul crushing things somebody can do to you, because essentially not only are they destroying that fundamental trust that's been being built up for how many months or years, but also, they're essentially choosing somebody else over you. So you're gonna feel like shit regardless of how long you've been with that
And they're
person.
lying to you,
Of
to your
course.
face.
Oh yes. But yeah, personally, me, like, I'm doing pretty good, because I'm realizing, hey, this isn't on me. This is on them.
Yeah.
They've made the conscious decision to pick somebody else, and that's fine. They have the freedom to do so if they're in a committed relationship or not. But at the same time, actions have consequences.
Yeah.
When you do that, you risk the chance of losing that person for everything, whether it be platonically or romantically. You're putting that on the line.
Yep.
Yes. And they're not afraid to take that risk, is because of that temporarily, like that loss that they are going through.
Yep.
That they're like, oh wow, this person is the best thing that I seen or whatever, and they will pick that over you, because of course, every relationship, whether you're flirting or whatever, is that honeymoon phase is the best phase ever.
Oh yes.
And of course, you're going to pick someone new, because they're going to be presenting themselves in a way, that's the best version of them.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's so
interesting you
easy
said
to
that.
be fooled into that trap, I believe. But some people don't realize what they are leaving behind as well. That
Hmm.
someone was willing to do a lot of things for them, and being with them through thick and thin, basically. But yeah, so it's so easy to just throw that away, I guess. For some people, I can't do that, but I don't know. Some people
No.
can. It's
It's
shocking.
interesting. I mean, with the honeymoon phase that you just mentioned, everyone goes through the honeymoon phase.
Hmm.
And to be honest with you, it looks the same for everyone.
Yeah.
So everyone has the same honeymoon phase. Everyone kind of acts the same in a honeymoon phase. It's pretty much the same all around. But what's tricky is, how is this person really deep down? Do they really plan to keep this going? What are their values? What are their morals? Do they want someone committed? And they can tell you all they want. Yeah, I want, like, I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you. I was an ass when I was like in my teens. Like, I would tell people like, oh yeah, we're just like a relationship in progress. And it was a total manipulation thing. And it was I am not proud of this, but I want to say it because it's important. I would tell people like, yeah, we're a relationship in progress, meaning like we're not in a relationship, but I want to keep you around. You know what I'm saying? And I don't plan on being in one, but I want, and it's so effed up. But my point is that honeymoon phase is the same all around for everyone. Everyone reacts pretty much the same. But the tricky part is like, are they going to stay? What are they really thinking? And what's going to happen after this honeymoon phase? And that's like really the most important part. Fuck the honeymoon phase. Like that's fun. Honeymoon phase is great. But what's the most important is like a year later, 2 years later is like when you really get to know them and you really get to know what they stand for and their values. And Yasmine, it sounds like his values did not match up with yours. His morals did not match up with yours. And it sucks that it took you 3 years for that to finally end and you could finally start healing. But that's just the way it goes, huh?
What I've realized is that certain people will they prefer to be a mirror of you. So my morals and my values were mirrored by him. So whatever I had, he would say the same thing as well and confirm it with me. And then that's when you realize this is the honeymoon phase. You're like, oh wow, this person has the same values with me. He thinks the same. He has this vision, and it's so amazing. But little do you know that they are just mirroring you, basically.
Yeah.
And like in my situation, my ex would pick up on my culture, my language, my mother tongue, and would really look into it and impress me with those things because no one else would ever do that, really, you know. And I was like, wow, this person is amazing. But now he's doing the same with this person. So these kind of people, they refuse to work on themselves because they don't think that they have any flaws. Therefore, taking piece of you each time will make them think that they are, much more important than who they really are because they have nothing valuable about them. They just like to take pieces of you and build up something that will suit for that person, really, to impress them more. And
sometimes that's okay though. I mean, sometimes that's okay, but they have to communicate and be like, honestly, I think the real thing is like they have to communicate and be honest at all times, and they cannot leave you in the dark, and they cannot lead you on, and they cannot lie to you. I mean, if they're going to mirror me, that's fine. I mean, if you want to mirror me, if you want to try to impress me, that's okay. I would rather you not, but that's okay. As long as you're open, you're honest, and you communicate and you don't lie. I mean, that's like, I think really obviously that's what keeps a relationship going. And he didn't have any of that.
Yeah, I had it at the beginning and then it slowly just faded away, basically. And that's when I realized, oh, this person was just being tactical, just trying to get with me. And then slowly, as soon as I was in that relationship, that's it. He doesn't no longer need to pursue me at all. But yeah, but it's a pattern. Like I've realized whenever certain people talk about their exes as well, there's a pattern. There's always a pattern in how they approach these relationships. And I realized in my ex's situation is that he kind of had the same approach as well, and now he's doing the same as well and I'm sure he will continue to do it because people don't change unless they want to. So it is a pattern that we need to focus on, rather than how they make us feel. Maybe focus on, have they done this, with people like from previous relationship, or is this just who they are? They can just it's so easy to put on a front.
Oh yes. When especially too, like if you see the behavior patterns and you notice that, for instance, when I was just talking about this in the Discord too, ironically enough, but when you have a person who, they end their relationship or their fling and they jump into another one right away, they're not taking the time to process what they just went through. They're not taking the time to learn what they did right, what they did wrong, what they want to see in a partner, what they don't want to see in a partner. And what I find normally rather than not is they bring that kind of baggage into the next relationship. And it's just the definition of insanity. It just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah.
And they can't stick with a healthier long-term relationship because they don't take the time to process it. And my prediction, again, a prediction, is that the same thing is going to happen to your ex. Is they're going to bring baggage from your relationship into that relationship, and it's going to just be a whole new circus for that.
Yep.
Well, good luck for her. Not my
they
problem
will
anymore.
need it.
Yeah. I think not only do they not you said they don't process it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, not only do they not process it, but they don't value it. They don't value relationships. And I think he needs to be dumped hard. I think you have to be dumped hard, and you have to be dumped hard more than once to start to value what a real relationship is, what commitment is. Because on the surface, it's like, oh, why would I want to stick with one person when there's like billions of people in the world? That sounds boring. Well,
Yeah.
no, because when you realize like how fruitful and valuable love is in general, and just having someone there by your side is so important. And you don't know that until you're dumped hard.
Yeah.
I think he needs to learn a lesson. And I hope that his next girlfriend dumps him and doesn't take shit and just dumps him. And I hope that he acts up, and I hope that he learns.
I should add too is a lot of the times I find these people do not take no contact well, like they don't receive it well. Going back to my situation, the gal that I'm no contact with actually didn't want to do it. We were gonna attempt it once. I actually backtracked because I felt like something was off, like I needed an answer, which was her seeing another dude. But with these type of people, and like you were saying earlier in the podcast, John, was that they don't want to feel guilt. They don't want to, because in their heads, the narrative has been set, the stage is set of how this story pans out and ends. And it's that they're not the bad guy because everybody's the hero in their own story, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is that when you stay in contact with these people, they don't learn the value of treating people right.
Yep.
Like with mine, if I left my accountability of healing with the person I was seeing, I would never heal because she would never let me do it. She would stay in my life just up until the point where, okay, well, now it's okay to tell you that I'm seeing this other person because you've moved on and I don't have to feel bad about doing this.
That's a great point.
And that's the thing is they don't know what they've lost. They have to get that experience of saying, you can't treat people like this. You gotta actually take action and value those people instead of just saying it.
I agree. Just taking no accountability, no responsibility, just really shows how emotionally immature you are. Because when a relationship breaks down, yeah, of course, it can be one-sided, but two sides play a big part in the breakup. Just because you've broken up or you have broken a relationship, there must be something coming from both parties that have ended it. I've had my flaws and he had his flaws. I accepted it. He didn't. He took no accountability and thought, do you know what? It's okay. I'm the dumpy in my story, so I'm just gonna move on to the next one and live my life and continue being loved and give love, etc. And
Exactly.
that's just the coping mechanism. But that will catch up with them. Their past will always catch up with them.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, he did you a favor. Honestly, you didn't have to do it. He did it for you.
Nope. He definitely did.
And I am just saying this for anyone. If you ever have a gut feeling, if you feel like you're being treated like a doormat, run. You end the relationship, gain your power back, and just walk away with your dignity intact. That is one thing that you will be just walking around with. That's one thing that you have taken that from that relationship. And that's worth more than anything.
Yeah,
It's worth
that's
more
great.
than love, or love is not enough. Your dignity and self-respect is worth more than anything.
And is it really love at that point? I don't think so.
Well, love is the minimum, honestly. Love is minimum. There's a lot of things.
But do you do that to someone you love? Is what I mean.
Pardon?
Do you do that to someone that you love? Do you push them away, lead them on, lie to them? Do you not make time for them to someone you love?
You can, I think so. You can love someone, but you can be disrespectful as well. And you can easily, because they know that you love them. That's the thing. They hold on to that love rather than holding on to the love that they have within them. So they just feed off from your love, to be honest.
Especially like the feelings and energy that come with it. And at that point, when it's time to kind of like move on along, I find they have like an unhealthy attachment towards you or the relationship, and kind of things devolve from there. As the saying goes, if you love something, you'll let it free.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Just let them go. Really, love is the minimum, and you should not allow someone to feed off from the love that you give. Basically, they're just taking you for granted. That's what it is. Because they know that you love that person and they know that you won't leave. So they're going to live their life how they want to, but still feed on your validation and your love.
Yeah. And I think also it's important, like at the beginning, after you've been cheated on or something similar like that, it's going to be really hard. You're going to be really angry. You're going to be more angry than ever. Like I can't even imagine, like it's crazy. But I think that eventually once you start healing, you really want to make sure that you wish them well, not actually wish them well, but in your own, for your own peace, in your mind, wish them well, hope that they figure it out, because you know that you loved them at one point, they loved you at one point, and at one point it was real and it was respectful,
Yeah.
and that's still the same person. And I mean, even though they've changed, they're kind of a dick now, but you have to just wish them well and hope that they learn from it, and hope that at the end, we're all human, and hopefully we all get what we want, which is happiness,
Absolutely.
I 100% agree with that. Yes. I was actually very angry at the beginning and I refused to forgive him for anything. I was like, this isn't my wrongdoing, it's his. But, after 5 months, you're like, it's fine. Like, he did what he did. And, what can I do other than forgive and move on? Actually, you need to learn to forgive yourself first and then, forgive that person.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, don't blame yourself. That's so
Forgive
important.
forgive yourself first. Do not treat yourself. Do not even question your self-worth. And, ask yourself, why wasn't I good enough?
Exactly.
When you ask those whys, you're actually becoming more powerless. You're actually giving more power to them. You'll never get those answers through whys and hows. You'll never get it. But what you need to learn is, okay, I reacted in this way because I was angry, I was confused. That's okay though. Now I know how to deal with it. So I forgive myself for the way I acted then. And then you move on and you learn from it and move on.
Especially in the case of like being cheated on, or if your partner decides to leave you and see somebody else, is that you kind of get this thought in your head that, it was kind of your doing. Your self-worth gets questioned by yourself, because in your mind you think, I screwed up. I did something wrong. This is why they left. In reality, it has nothing to do with you.
No,
More times than
absolutely.
not, it reflects on them instead.
Yeah. And it's hard to convince yourself of that too. And when you're in it,
Oh,
you're in
yes.
it, and you want to blame yourself 120%. It's all my fault. If I only did this, if I only changed this? No. Okay.
Nope.
This is going to happen no matter what you do. Yasmine's story,
Absolutely.
she did everything. You did everything that you could. You gave him
Yeah.
every single little opportunity. You were a saint compared to what he was doing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
yet he still
Guys, I
left.
put up with so much crap. Like the one thing that I forgot to mention is that he kind of like fake proposed in August as well.
Oh,
That kind of
no.
Fake
messed me up.
propose?
Fake, what I mean is, I call it fake propose because it was just so random, like just out of blue, and we were just walking one night, and he just asked me, and I was like, "You're joking." I said, "This is a joke." I said, "I would never accept in this kind of scenario, in this situation." And he was like, "No, I'm only joking anyways." I was like, "Wow,
What?
that's very manipulative thing to do." And
Yeah.
that's
That's
messed
more
up.
cringe than anything.
That's a big
Yeah.
yikes.
Yeah, honestly. But yeah, I'm just glad
Wow.
that this person
That's
is out of
juicy
my life.
details.
I have many more, but this is fine for now. No more.
I reckon that's a highlight.
Episode 2. No.
Electric Boogaloo.
The first month is the first month after the breakup is always the most hardest month ever. So it's so normal for people to question their decision, to question their self-worth. It's normal. We all go through that process anyways, but we need to keep reminding ourselves that, like what John said as well, it was going to happen anyways. It was inevitable. Whatever you did, whatever you said, or whatever you were going to say and do, it wasn't going to change the outcome. Simple as that. And we fail to accept that because we cling on to hope a lot.
Well, it's one of the hardest lessons that I've ever learned, was that I can never say the perfect thing. I always think to myself, if I just said the perfect thing, if I just did this, if I just did that, I'd be in such a different place right now. The fact is that you can't control it. You just cannot. And most importantly, you cannot blame yourself. And you cannot say, like, if I just had the wherewithal to do this, or I was smarter and I could do
Truly.
this, and any of that, it's just all BS, Like there are things in life. I mean, life, the universe, you cannot control. People's actions, you cannot control. And it has nothing to do with how valuable you are at all.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Truly, sometimes choice is just an illusion. Like, there's going to be times where the outcome is going to be inevitable no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I just
agree.
watched The Minority Report last night for the first time. It's like a 90s movie. I don't know why I waited so long, but it was pretty good. It was kind of similar to what we're talking about.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Spicy.
So for anyone listening, let's give some advice to people, some general advice for anyone who is suspecting their person with cheating or have been cheated on or are just interested in like what to do. I'm going to give some advice to someone if their ex did cheat on you. If your ex did cheat on you and you are still pining for them, you need to take a good hard look at yourself and ask yourself why you want someone who treats you like shit. Do you have a childhood trauma? Do you have abusive parents? So if you have someone who cheated on you and you're still trying to get with them, you're still trying to hang out with them, you're still trying to contact them, you're still longing for them, think about why that is. If there is something alluring to you when someone does that to you, such a heinous act, really, if there's something alluring and attractive about that, it's probably rooted in your past and it's completely subconscious. You can't really control it. It's just been kind of learned. And I'm saying this because I've had abusive parents and I've done things and I've wondered, why do I do these things? And I kind of trace it back and I go, because of my childhood, because of how I was raised, because of what was said to me.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing this. So, what you do is you find out what is rooted in your subconscious. What is making you want this person still? Even after they did this to you, even after they cheated on you, there was someone else. The worst thing ever. What is it that makes you still want them? Find out what that is. And that means work on it with a therapist. Like Yasmine said, find a therapist and give yourself the opportunity to find a happy, loving relationship with boundaries and mutual respect. And if you think that you'll never find that, because I used to think that all the time, I'll never find it because every relationship, it ends. And now it's like, what am I worth? What am I doing? Am I ever going to be happy? Am I ever going to have a happy, healthy relationship? If you think that, that's because that's probably what you've been telling yourself your whole life. Get help. That's what it's there for. There's no shame in it. Find out what's going on in your mind. Find out what happened in your past that's now reflecting in your future. Get help. You can work on it. You can fix yourself and you can find that relationship that you're looking for.
That's a solid advice.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I would also say people who are seeking out for closure, their disrespect is your closure. You do not need closure from them or anything that comes out of their mouth. Like no words can ever give you closure because that will just create more whys and hows for you. So their disrespect is your closure. Just read their actions. They are speaking to you.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
And if you think your partner is cheating, I would say not to, like we said, if there's smoke, there's fire. Like, yeah, it's probably going to happen. Like with what Dylan said, like if it talks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. But if you're kind of curious and you're wondering like something's going on, you feel like your ex may be up to something, but you haven't had confirmation yet. I think really the best thing to do is to investigate it respectfully. If you suspect your partner's cheating, just communicate with them. Don't say like, oh, you're cheating or accuse them or imply anything about cheating. Don't even like mention or even imply cheating, but just kind of be curious. Yasmine, I think you did this. You were just kind of curious, like what's going on? Like, why can't you see me? Yeah, you communicated your desires and then you went and you saw how he responded to it. That's how you kind of dealt with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then my evidence was his actions, when he decided to go out for drinks on that Saturday night. That was my evidence because that was him crossing my boundaries. And that was all I ever needed, to be honest. Sometimes you don't really need physical evidence, to be honest. You don't actually need that message. You don't need to see him in bed with someone or something. Sometimes, those little things that they do in between, that is your evidence. Just pay attention to their actions more than anything. But yeah, that's all I would say about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes you won't get the truth. Sometimes they will fight tooth and nail to the end to hide whatever they're doing. Not to say that they are doing it or not, but even then, it's up to you. If they start acting sketchy and things aren't lining up, like, you're more than free to end the relationship if they're not giving you a
Exactly.
suitable answer. You can end a relationship for any reason at all.
Exactly. That's a really good point. Even if you have a hunch and you don't feel comfortable, if you don't feel comfortable, you express it. And that's what Yasmin did. She
Yes.
expressed it. If you don't feel
Absolutely.
comfortable in the relationship about anything, express it. And if they don't listen to you, maybe give them a couple more shots, express it
Yes.
again, express it again. But at some point, like Yasmin said, let it go, drop it, because it's a tumor.
Yep.
Yes, it will only harm you, because that question will just, stay in your head, and it will destroy you. So yeah, if you have those thoughts or anything, question them, ask them. Just be upfront about it. Don't let those thoughts eat your head. And if they, if they lash out, if they use something against you, then realize that there's something going on. Not always, but just react to how they are reacting to your question. In my case, what I would get is, when I question it, I would get a question back, and I was like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
And of course, that was one occasion, and then you do another, you ask again, and you ask again, and you ask again, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's your pattern. Actually, the way they're answering you is, that's also your evidence too.
Oh yeah.
It will all lead up to one point where they will not be able to hide it anymore. To be honest, they will give those little cues in between. But yeah, always be honest and always just be upfront. Confront them. I would always say this: confront them.
100%.
Yep. You got nothing to lose.
Exactly.
And like you said, he was a coward at the end. He could not just tell you, and he held on to it to the bitter end. That's a real coward right there. You're right.
Yeah, I'm just so glad I used that word.
Yeah. It's
Honestly.
it's one thing to tell somebody the truth, like at least they get a slight modicum of respect, but it's also another to have to pry the truth out of that person and find out for yourself and piece those puzzle pieces together, because then you're on a whole new level. Like, you had to do all the work
Yeah.
and basically get them to admit that they're doing something that was like, walking over your boundaries or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cut the cord. As soon as you realize that, cut the cord.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So looking back now, Yasmin, is there anything that you think that you would have done differently?
Well, I just wish I didn't answer that first call. Um,
Yeah.
but because you know what, he even asked me if I'm seeing someone and stuff like that, and when I look back, I cringe. But that's because I was still trying to process the breakup. I was doing well, but I was still processing it. Um, yeah, so I'm in much better headspace at the moment. So I
So you
have
would
learned
basically
a lot about myself through this relationship and through the
like
breakup.
what?
Oh, going back to what John said, about my childhood trauma, the fact that silent treatments was something that triggers me, and he would give me silent treatments, and that triggered me in my relationship. So I would go for more. I would want more. I would want
Yep.
answers. I do not like it when people go silent on me, because that means I'm doing something wrong here.
Yeah.
Let me try
It's malicious.
trying to fix it. Yeah, absolutely. So I've kind of learned that through therapy. So I've learned a lot about myself through therapy, and it kind of made me realize that I've been, gaslit throughout this relationship, and
Oh yeah.
controlled as well, and manipulated. But now it's good to know these and pick up on these. So hopefully in my next relationship it won't be like that, but hopefully I'll be able to pick up on red flags.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
No,
But
you will. You will.
You will.
Don't even
yeah.
worry about it. The fact
But
that you're
yeah,
yeah.
I would like to say something though. Going on to red flags. Um, what I've learned in my past, with this gal I've been seeing, is that I always thought I was a person that I would see the red flags, because now, like, I'm pretty conditioned. I've seen it with other people. I've seen it in past relationships. Like, there's no way in hell I'm gonna walk into this trap, but I did. As somebody who's a moderator on X No Contact, probably people are like, "What the hell? Like, how did he do that?" We're all human at the end of the day, and it's kind of like the quote from BoJack Horseman. When you're in the honeymoon phase, you're wearing rose tinted glasses, and all the flags look, all the red flags look like flags. You can't really tell a difference. And mind you, the person I was seeing, she wasn't toxic, but now being apart from the situation, it was pretty apparent that things were toxic in the sense of they weren't healthy. Like boundaries were not being enforced properly on both sides. Um, as well as things like, she would push me away due to probably issues that she needed to work out. And, jumping into another relationship or a fling, you're not able to process that. So I would like to make it a point to both of you, and even whoever's listening to this, is that just be careful when you're jumping into something. Like Yasmine and John has said, actions over words, 100%. Because when you
Yes.
realize that the actions aren't lining up with the words, you have a right to be very skeptical.
Hmm.
Yeah,
It's a
I
great
agree
point.
with that. I just want to add one thing, is that for people out there, you should seek out for, if you want to seek out for someone that's has high value in them, that's someone that will decide that he has, some crap to work on, and that his loneliness is not an opportunity to use a woman as a band-aid, because a lot of people would do that, use other people as a band-aid rather than deal
Yep.
with their inner problems, to be honest. So just just look out for that too.
Yeah, I used to do that, and I realized that things are more valuable than that, and things and there's more to life than that. And you can sort of them like in the first few weeks, you can get an idea of where they're at mentally when you ask them things like, what do you enjoy, like what do you value, like do you want to have kids, like do you see yourself with like a family, and like all this stuff. And if they're hesitant, maybe think twice, you know what I mean? Because you can kind of tell someone's morals and their values at the beginning, and you can kind of get a good sense. And usually if they're hesitant, it'll just get worse.
Exactly. Especially like with major compatibilities, like having, on the discussion of having children, like that is probably arguably one of the most important compatibilities to have in any kind of relationship that, you're going to
Yeah.
reproduce. Um, First date, you might want to get out of that. You might want to get that out of the way instead of waiting a year down the road.
Yep,
Yeah, learn that from experience.
Yeah.
exactly.
And a partner should not be your purpose in this world. They are not your
No.
destination. They are only your travel companion.
Absolutely.
Basically. So don't make them a priority in your life. Of course, there'll be a point where they will be a priority, but they're not your purpose. So look
No,
out for your purpose.
they're
Yeah.
a part of your purpose, but they're not the purpose.
Yes, spot
Yeah,
on.
and that may change too, and you may find that someone else fits your purpose better. And
Yeah.
that's, yeah, we all learn that, and we're all on our way to that. Really, honestly, we're all on our way to our own purposes. And these breakups, and they may be horrible and devastating, but they're bringing us closer to where we're supposed to be.
Exactly. And I always resonate this in the Discord. And my advice for this is that you need to learn how to be happy on your own and to find happiness within yourself. You can't use a partner as a source of happiness. Now, you can have a partner to enrich your own happiness and theirs, but if you're only using them as a source for that, you you got to work on yourself. You got to work on what a definition of a relationship should be.
Yeah, and you got to ask yourself why you're relying on them for these kinds of things. And like I said before, therapy, like that's
Yeah.
something you got to work on.
It's
I
okay
actually
to
have I actually have a question for Dylan. You know how you said that you don't want to make them a source of your happiness, your only source of happiness. What can you give like other examples of sources where, would create happiness for you other than a partner?
I mean, just finding happiness in your own individuality. I find with relationships, and I'm sure we're all guilty of this, is that like we tend to kind of merge in a sense. You merge with the relationship, you change, and that's not something that's inherently wrong, but it's something you have to be mindful and careful of because I've been a victim of it, or I should say I've done it. I lost my individuality with my with a couple serious relationships,
Mm.
and that's a lot of the part of no contact. You're letting go of the past. You're trying to find your individuality again and also grow with that. We see a lot of people in, the Discord or the Telegram or whatever that come in, and you can kind of just tell that they're devastated because they've made the relationship like their main identity, if that makes sense. When it's not, like, you're your own individual, you have your own hobbies and emotions and feelings and all of that jazz. And I see too many people, including myself earlier on in life, that they use the relationship for the main source of their happiness, or I should say, the way they relied on it was very unhealthy. And you have to know that, okay, you can get support and love and all of that jazz from a relationship. You also have to be able to stand on your own instead of lean on the relationship 100% of the time for that. I also wanted to make a point earlier, which I forgot to make, which was more or less like the silent treatment thing. I want to separate no contact and kind of go on the record from that. It's not to get back at your ex. It's not to punish them.
Yes.
It's not to make them miss you or get them back. It's for yourself. It's to heal. It's to find your individuality again and get right at her again like you were before. You can be friends with your ex after. We're not gonna tell you if you want to or not. Like, we're not those people. It's up to you. But what you need to do in the meantime is focus on you, not them, not anybody else, unless, like, there's people close in your relationships like family and friends, but people who are supporting you and you can support them back.
Yeah. And it's time for you to be selfish.
Exactly.
Be selfish with yourself, be selfish with your time, and learn to say, this is all about me from now on, and prioritize that. Yeah.
Be overly selfish, because if you're
Mhm.
someone who's been treated like shit, you have to be overly selfish because you've been allowing yourself to be treated like shit. So you need to not only be selfish, but 200% be selfish, because you have to make up for the abuse that you've let yourself take. And if that means, for me, what that was when I was going through my hardest time, being selfish for me was, what do I want to do? I want to do this. Okay, I'm going to do it. What do I feel like eating? I'm going to eat this. I'm going to eat it. Whatever I felt like doing, I said yes. Yes, 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 yes. No resistance. Why? Because I want to. And that's the only reason I need. I need no other reasons, because I want to. And that's why I'm doing it. And that helped me a lot in my independence.
Yes, that's a great advice. Yeah, definitely. Say yes to yourself, and for any opportunity that comes to you, be selfish recklessly.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, in a relationship, you're giving a lot, but you're also, if it's healthy, you're receiving a lot. And the thing is, like, people might describe me as a really giving person. I do think I'm a giving person more than I am a receiving person. So I always tend to focus on others versus myself. I'm kind of the last priority at the end of the day, which isn't great. It's a hard lesson I've learned in the last couple of years, that I've had to start prioritizing myself, because when you have no gas left, you can't give anything, right? You need that gas to keep going. As the popular saying is, you can't light yourself on fire to keep others warm.
Love
And
that.
that's the thing where you're going to realize with no contact, is you're going to realize how much you were giving and how much you were receiving. And you probably feel that in a few weeks to a few months, just depending on how your healing process goes. And then you kind of get a deeper perspective on how the relationship made you feel and what you were giving into it versus receiving.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think we did a really good job. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good go.
Yeah.
That was a good conversation.
I enjoyed it. For anyone listening, if you like this podcast like we did, give us 5 stars, give us a comment. You can find me on the Discord, the subreddit, Telegram. You can email podcast@xnocontact.com if you want to be involved. Dylan, where can we find you?
Pretty much Discord.
And Yasmine is on the Telegram, right?
Yes, I'm on Telegram. Great.
All right. Well, thank you both. Awesome. Anything else?
Guys. Really appreciate it. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was a great discussion. Nice chatting with you both.
Have a good weekend.
Thank
Right
you.
on.
You too,
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.